tracks to tell a tale. Here come a young one, he digging through the cracks. A fast food future and a tattoo on the back.
Good day, YouTube, and welcome to the Trooper's Garage. In today's installment, I'm going to go through an install video of the Rugged Ridge heavy-duty steel tubular fender flares on my 2013 Jeep Wrangler. This particular video isn't going to be as detailed as some of the other videos that I've done in the past on projects on my Jeep and whatnot, because I actually found that Rugged Ridge did a pretty adequate install video of this product, and there isn't really a lot that needs to be added to it, so I would tell you reference that video. I'm going to add a couple of my own little tweaks and things that you may find helpful, but other than that, their install video is actually pretty darn good, so I encourage you to check that one out also. Or I should say, the other thing is that this is mainly going to be a review of the product. Two things that I'm going to emphasize right now is, number one, before you start, make sure you have some open end wrenches or even ratcheting wrenches, because you can't get some of these bolts tightened up without those. And also, I can't emphasize this part enough either, get yourself an actual Zerk nut tool. Those are indispensable with this project, and I can't imagine trying to do it without. Nothing need more be said at this point, so let's get started. Okay, so here's a good look at the fenders straight out of the box. Overall, finish is pretty decent. The materials that it's made out of, rugged, so I'd say Rugged Ridge definitely earned their name when making this product. Overall, just looking at it, pretty happy with the purchase. I'm going to point a few things out, though. So if you're an anal perfectionist, and I'm using that term loosely, there are some things you're going to notice about the fender you may not like. So the rounded edges, or I should say where they kind of bent the metal to meet the curve of the fender itself, as you can see, it's not perfectly round. It's kind of angular. So just looking at this video, if you see that and it just irks you to the point where you can't stand looking at it, then obviously I'm going to suggest maybe looking at different fender flares. For me, I'm kind of moderate in how I feel about those types of things, so this is not a deal breaker for me. Also, too, that's going to be less noticeable as I put truck bed liner on it to further protect it. But overall, just looking at it straight out of the box, pretty happy with it so far. So there's a few other things I'll point out. As you can see, I've already scoured the surface of it for the truck bed liner, but right here, the gap between the tube and the flat part of the fender flare, in some places it fits up perfect, looks real nice, and then you get to a spot like this, where you have these big gaps. For me, there's probably little protecting coat in those gaps, which means it's probably going to rust up a little bit. Also, like I said, if you demand perfection in the things that you buy, that's probably going to drive you crazy. For me, it's going to get coated with truck bed liner, so I don't really care either way. So far, still pretty happy with the purchase, but it just does have some perfections that may end up being a deal breaker for some of you. Excuse me. So looking at the inside of the fender, got some pretty decent welds here. Unless I run into a tree or something, I seriously doubt those are going to come loose. And then a couple other imperfections I'll point out right here is those bolt holes where they were kind of drilled in and welded in. Some of them look really good, and then some of them kind of shoddy looking. But also, that's the inside of the fender. You're not hardly ever going to see that. But as you can see, nice, thick steel, pretty good coating. Overall, these are looking pretty good so far. Pretty happy. We're going to continue with the install, obviously. Alright, now for those of you that have watched a couple of my other install videos on my Jeep, you knew what was coming next. I was going to put some Herculiner, truck bed liner on my fenders to kind of protect them and give them a nice aggressive looking finish. And as you can see, those gaps and a lot of those blemishes and things I was pointing out earlier are pretty much completely hidden. Overall, pretty happy. I think I'll do another coat on these to maybe take a few of those imperfections out. But so far, fenders are looking great, and we're just about ready for the install. So the next negative thing that I have to say is that Rugged Ridge sends this rubber trim that is supposed to go along kind of the inside and top edge of the fender flares to go up against the body of your vehicle to kind of seal it in and whatnot. Well, the adhesive on this stuff is weak. It's weaker than Scotch tape. I have no idea how they actually expected this to stick to anything. I'm going to go ahead and give it a try just so I can say that I did, and I'll film myself doing it, but just kind of sticking my thumb on this, it is not anywhere near tacky enough to actually stick to these fender flares, and if they did by some miracle, they sure as hell aren't going to stay on there for long. But let's give it a try. Alright, so we're sticking it on, pushing it down, and as you can see, it's lifting up already. It is not sticking to this at all. Even with a little bit of that truck bed liner slop over, it should still stick to it. As you can see, like, I could probably sneeze on it and it would blow it right off. Now, to be completely fair, I thought, well, maybe I can loosely put the fender flare in place, and kind of tuck it down in and then maybe tighten the flare into the rubber gasket, and that would hold it in place. That is not going to work at all either. There is not enough lip to tuck down into place to get held there when we tighten the fender flare down. It's not going to work. We tried a couple other things off camera, but essentially that's all that is good for. Get rid of it. So this is pretty much the only part of the install that I'm going to cover. Like I said, Rugged Ridge's video is pretty extensive and almost all you really need. But to emphasize how important it is for you to have a good set of wrenches, you're going to have a couple of holes here that you can only reach with a wrench. Can't get a ratchet in there. It's going to be hell to try and do this with pliers or anything else. So trust me, you need a set anyways, right? So you might as well, if you don't have them already, just spend the money now. So a couple of these hard to reach bolts, what I did was I kind of preloaded the nut in the wrench, and I kind of fed it up underneath the body or behind the body of the Jeep there, and then just took my bolt and fed it in, and then just tighten it down like any other nut bolt combo. Now with the fender flares installed, I'm going to point this out real quick. As you can see, the curvature of the fender flare itself doesn't precisely match those indentations in the body where it's supposed to go. There's a few gaps. Now, to be fair, those gaps would have been taken up by that rubber molding that was included in the fender flare kit, if they had actually worked. However, as you could see, the ones I was provided with, the adhesive was completely inadequate, and that lip that's supposed to go down in between the fender and the body just was not big enough. So for some of you, like I mentioned, if you're a perfectionist, this may be a deal breaker for you, which is why I'm kind of pointing it out. For me, I don't care enough. I like the fender flares and the way they fit on the Jeep well enough to leave them exactly where they are. Well, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm not doing the full install as I mentioned earlier because Rugged Ridge has a great video on that already, so why reinvent the wheel? I'll leave a link down below. I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure you have the proper tools, obviously, but most especially that nut zert tool. I can't emphasize this enough. Get that nut zert tool. Either buy it online, it's 40 or 50 bucks, or call around to some of your local auto parts store. I guarantee one of them will rent it to you, and you only really need it for a day, but that will make the job so much easier. Overall, I'm very happy with this purchase. I think the price was on point. They make the Jeep look great. They're nice and sturdy. The install was straightforward and pretty easy for a guy like me and an extra pair of hands. And it only took about 3 hours max, not including putting the truck bed lining on. But anyways, I am going to fade to black and then show a few pictures of the finished Jeep for you. I hope you're having a great day. This is Trooper 134 signing off.
Here come a young one, turning 6 into 9. Here come a young one, already done time. Here come a young one, he got a brand new Manson. Not taking no prisoners, not taking any ransom. We ain't there yet. This the bottom, no further on down. 19 seconds coming through your town.